The movie begins with three inseparable high school friends, David, Quinn, and Adam. Together, they are working on a science project that could change their lives. David, the brightest of the group, comes up with a bold idea: to create an innovative drone that can not only be controlled with a remote, but also through hand gestures. Christina, David's sister, captures the moment on her camera as they test the drone. But amid the excitement, David's phone rings. Distracted by the call, he loses control of the drone, which crashes and breaks. The situation becomes tense, but the feeling that this could be the start of something much bigger lingers in the air. David has always stood out for his intelligence and has dreamed of getting into a prestigious university. To increase his chances, he decides to send Christina's footage to the admissions committee. After days of waiting, he finally receives the long-awaited acceptance letter. His heart races with excitement at the positive response, but his joy is quickly overshadowed by a major problem. His family doesn't have the money to pay for tuition. David's mother, determined to support her son's dreams, makes a drastic decision: to sell the house to raise the necessary funds. However, David is furious about this idea. To him, the house isn't just a place to live, it's a symbol of his father's presence, who died in a car accident when David was only 7 years old. Losing the house would mean losing the last tangible connection to his father, something he cannot bear. While grappling with this tough decision, David and Christina start going through some old belongings in the house and stumble upon a camera that once belonged to their father. Intrigued, they connect the camera to the laptop, and as they watch the footage, they discover a recording of David's 7th birthday. What initially seems like a simple memory quickly turns bizarre. In the middle of the video, a younger version of David appears alongside his present-day self. The strangest moment, however, happens when David notices himself in the video standing in front of a mirror, exactly as he is now, watching the footage. Confused and alarmed, David calls Quinn and Adam to show them the video. They are just as shocked as he is, though they try to come up with a logical explanation, such as video editing. However, when David points out that he's wearing the exact same clothes as in the video, their perplexity turns into an alarming realization. Amid the growing confusion, David begins to recall that his father, a scientist who worked for the U.S. Army, once had a secret laboratory in the basement of their house. This space, mysterious and hidden, could hold the key to understanding the strange events and bizarre images David and his friends had been witnessing. With this idea in mind, the group heads down to the basement, hesitant yet convinced that David's father's lab conceals something that might explain what's happening. The lab, untouched since David's father left it, was filled with equipment and notes, as if time had frozen there. During their exploration, they stumble upon something astonishing: a secret door hidden in the floor. With a mix of curiosity and apprehension, they open it and discover a metal box tucked under the floorboards. Inside, they find a small machine and a set of detailed blueprints. The blueprints immediately grab their attention. They are precise and meticulously drawn, revealing that David's father had been working on a revolutionary project called Almanac, a classified military initiative. Hello, my dear friends. This is the summary of the movie, Project Almanac. I hope you're enjoying it. Comment awesome, so we know you're paying attention to every detail of the video. Now let's continue. As they examine the blueprints more closely, the truth begins to unfold. David's father had been developing a time machine. Adam and Quinn, immediately thrilled by the discovery, suggest building the machine based on the plans. They see this as an opportunity to travel back in time, and most importantly, for David to revisit his 7th birthday. To them, it's clear. This machine might be the only way to change what's happening, and perhaps even allow David to reconnect with his father, something he had dreamed of ever since his passing. Despite his doubts, David agrees to move forward with the plan. The group makes a pact: they will build the time machine. Together, they purchase the necessary parts and begin working, following the blueprints to the letter. After numerous trials and errors, they finally manage to generate an electromagnetic field, something they hadn't expected to achieve so soon. With the device assembled, the moment of activation arrives. As soon as they power up the machine, a surge of energy courses through it, causing the light bulbs on a nearby table to flicker and light up. The energy being released is immense, and soon the batteries begin to overheat, exploding one after another. Sparks and debris fly across the room, leaving the group stunned and frightened. David decides to use his computer's graphics processor to design a navigation program for the time machine. This software will allow the group to precisely control the machine's movements. Meanwhile, Adam connects his mobile phone to the machine, using it as a remote control. With everything in place, The group prepares for a second attempt. David explains that for now, the machine can only travel 6 weeks into the past. However, to make the mission successful, they will need to split the machine's energy. This means using only 3 weeks of energy for the journey back and reserving enough to return to the present. The plan is to carefully balance the energy usage so they can navigate between the past and present without the machine failing. When the machine is finally activated, a wave of electromagnetic energy emanates from it, causing a distortion in the space around. Objects in the room begin to spin rapidly in the air, and the atmosphere fills with an electric sensation, as if time is about to break. However, the attempt is once again interrupted. The machine's battery overloads, resulting in a massive explosion. The force of the explosion is so intense that a glass of water is thrown into the air, landing directly on David and leaving a visible mark on his shirt. In that moment, David freezes, recalling a video from his 7th birthday where he wore the exact same shirt with the same mark. This realization sends a wave of confusion through the group. They begin to speculate that they may be closer to getting the time machine to work than they initially thought. After the second failed attempt, David reaches a crucial conclusion. The machine needs a much more powerful energy source to function properly: fusion energy. The only way to obtain that would be by using hydrogen, but getting the material would require a special permit, something they clearly don't have. However, in a twist, David, Quinn, and Adam remember that there's a hydrogen cylinder stored in their school. With the plan set, they prepare to act. Late at night, the trio sneaks into the school, taking all necessary precautions not to get caught. After bypassing security, they manage to access the area where the cylinder is stored and steal it. Back in the basement, they get ready for the third attempt. The group decides to test the machine differently. They place a camera on a small toy car, intending to send it to the past and observe the results. However, when they turn the machine on again, the energy waves spiral out of control, causing another explosion in the battery. Frustration mounts, but David notices something that catches his attention. Through the window, he sees Jessie, a schoolmate, walking toward her car. David has had a crush on her for a while, and that day she's heading to a party. The group sees an opportunity. They wait for Jessie to leave for the party, and once she's gone, they break into her car and steal the battery. Back in the basement, they prepare the battery for the time machine. But just as they're about to activate it, Jessie unexpectedly shows up at the house. She's shocked to see the chaos in the basement, with objects floating due to the machine's energy. Jessie demands an explanation, and while David tries to explain, she's clearly confused and frightened. Despite the interruption, the group proceeds with the plan. Now, with the battery in place, they activate the machine and send the toy car to the past. To everyone's surprise, the machine works, and the car is successfully sent. At that moment, the power in the entire city briefly cuts out. The lights flicker, but soon come back on. The group rushes to check the results. They find the cart stuck to the ceiling, seemingly stopped. Upon reviewing the camera footage, they discover that the cart traveled 2 hours into the past. Jessie, now fully aware of everything, is both amazed and concerned. She realizes that David and his friends are involved in something much bigger than she had imagined. At first, she stays silent, but then she suggests an idea that excites the group. Instead of just sending objects, why not travel themselves? David hesitates. The idea of time travel is risky, and he's worried about the potential consequences. But after much insistence, he finally agrees. That same night, David, Christina, Quinn, Adam, and Jessie gather in the basement. They adjust the machine's controls and prepare to travel back in time for a single day. When the machine is activated, they find themselves in the past. To test if they really traveled in time, they decide to go to Quinn's house. When they arrive, David gets an idea. He wants to revisit some childhood memories. David draws a smiling face on Quinn to leave a mark, so they'd know if they were truly in the past. But just as Quinn opens his eyes, something strange happens. There are now 2 Quinns in the same place, one from the present and one from the past. Both start to panic, and soon they begin to disappear. The group realizes that 2 people from different points in time cannot exist in the same space, or they will vanish. In a panic, they all decide to return to the present. Back in the present, they quickly begin to think about the endless possibilities the machine offers. Quinn, who had failed a test, decides to use the machine to go back in time and retake the exam multiple times until he passes. Christina, on the other hand, uses the machine to get revenge on Sarah, a girl who had bullied her at school, traveling to different moments to confront her. Adam, bolder than the others, decides to use the machine to go back and win a lottery that had already taken place, winning $1.8 million. The group splits the money, and buys everything they've always wanted. David decides to give most of the money to his mother, but keeps a portion for himself. He uses this money to buy a sports car and powerful batteries that can increase the time machine's capacity, allowing for even longer trips to the past. In the following days, they continue experimenting, having fun with their newfound abilities. One day, David gathers the group to announce that they now have powerful enough batteries to travel 3 months into the past. They test the machine again and end up at a party. They have a great time, but during the party, Jessie opens up to David about her feelings for him. Distracted by the fun, David doesn't fully understand what she says. Frustrated, Jessie gets upset and leaves the party. When they return to the present, David realizes his mistake. He feels guilty for not listening to Jessie and decides to go back alone to the past, to the same party. When he sees her again, this time he listens to her carefully. Jessie shares her feelings with him, and David finally understands what she had been trying to say. David kisses her and expresses his feelings. When he returns to the present, he is surprised to discover that he and Jessie are now a couple. The change they made in the past affected their present, and now they are together because of it. However, time travel begins to have deeper consequences. The alterations in the past create a domino effect, gradually affecting the present. The more David and his friends change the past, the more intense the effects become. In the original timeline, Jessie got angry and left the party, which prevented her and David from becoming a couple. But by going back to fix things, David and Jessie start a relationship, altering the course of the timeline. As they make more changes, the effects start to have even bigger impacts. One example is Justin, the captain of the basketball team, who suffers a car accident, leading to his team's defeat. This, in turn, affects the life of Sarah, the girl who used to bully Christina, as her brother played on Justin's team. In the original timeline, Sarah's father, a commercial pilot, would have attended the game. However, due to the change in the timeline, he was working and ended up missing the game, which resulted in his plane crash and death. David feels terrible when he realizes the consequences of his actions and understands that he needs to correct what he has done, so he decides to travel back to the past once again to prevent these accidents. He makes sure to save Justin before he gets hit and quickly returns to the present. In doing so, the timeline begins to correct itself, and events start to realign with the original timeline, undoing some of the damage caused by the time travel. However, things are not fully fixed. Adam, a friend of David's, suffers a serious accident and ends up in the hospital. His condition worsens, and David feels guilty, believing that his actions with the time machine are harming his friends. Determined to make things right, David goes down to the basement and decides to travel back to the past again to try to fix things. This time, Jessie decides to join him. When he is asked why he is going alone, David reveals the whole truth about time travel and how he tried to fix his relationship with her. Jessie feels confused and upset, but before they can discuss it further, a version of Jessie from this timeline appears, causing both versions to disappear. David then realizes that he needs to go back to his 7th birthday to prevent the Almanac project from happening. However, he finds himself without the hydrogen cartridges needed to power the machine. Meanwhile, the police arrive at his house to investigate Jessie's disappearance. David manages to escape the situation and heads to the school to get more cartridges. With the cartridges in hand, he travels back to the day of his 7th birthday. Upon reaching the basement, he finds his father, who immediately recognizes him. David explains that he built the time machine based on his father's project. His father, thrilled by the discovery, remembers something important and leaves the basement, hugging David before he departs. After his father leaves, David burns all the Almanac projects to ensure the project never happens. When David returns to the present, he realizes the time machine project no longer exists, meaning he never traveled through time. He meets Christina, and they are in the same scene where they had previously seen his father's camera. However, this time, they don't see David's reflection, indicating that the time travel never occurred. The timeline has been restored to its original state. The movie ends with David talking to Jessie, now friends, with no memories of their complicated past. However, a problem arises, the grandfather paradox. If you enjoyed this movie, I recommend checking out this other one as well. I'm sure you'll love it. See you there.